William Bradford was governor of Plymouth Plantation for about 30 years. He was also part of the Scrooby congregation which birthed Plymouth Colony. So he was a first-hand eyewitness of all that happened for the foundations that were laid for Plymouth Colony.
Without William Bradford's journal, we know very little of the Pilgrims' story. When you really look at the story of the manuscript and how it has been preserved for centuries now, it really is miraculous. From all the ancestors from William Bradford that it passed down to the different people in the 1700s that borrowed the book. Even during one of those times where it was in the Mather household, it survived a fire. There was an Indian conflict at the time called King Philip's War. Increase Mather's house was burned to the ground, and yet this book was somehow preserved in the midst of that fire. You take the British who captured this book and took it up to Nova Scotia, and it made its way over to England, and somewhere along the line, each set of hands that this book was placed into preserved it and did not destroy it. And it was loot at one time, and it could have easily been burned for whatever reason, for spite, for anything, and yet it wasn't. And then it was placed on file in a library in England, and it was brought out just at the time in America's history where many Americans back in the 19th century were beginning to become awakened to the need for preservation of our roots. So the timing of the discovery of the book as well as the preservation of it for those several centuries, it really is a miracle.
Bradford's journal is a very important document in our history because it shows plainly the purposes and reasons for why they came. That was part of his purpose in writing it. The journal plainly reveals that unlike other colonies, they did not come for land and for resources. They came to stay. They came to live and to worship God according to their conscience as revealed to them in the scriptures. He also published a lot of primary source documents. The treaty between the natives and the colonists was in there. Letters of correspondence with John Robinson, the English authorities, the merchant adventures are all included in the journal. One of the most significant pieces of information or primary resources in there is the Mayflower Compact. And from that compact we can see the seeds of our form of Christian government. We see representative government as they elected John Carver to be their first governor. We also see equality of law. No man is above the law. They passed just and equal laws. We also see Christian self-government. They didn't post a lot of to-dos and not-to-dos and things that are lawful and are not lawful. They trusted each man to govern himself according to the Holy Scriptures, to use Christian self-government. And we know all these things because Bradford published it in his journal. So we have an original point of reference for what our country should look like. We don't have to follow every whim and every newfangled idea that comes along the pike. We have a standard that's been set out before us, and Bradford clearly outlines that in his journal.